All right, so I wasn't at the banquet in Barcelona, so I didn't see this live. I was having tapas nearby. I think if everyone I had known was in the dinner, I might have splashed for a ticket, but as a lot of them weren't, it would just made a lot more sense to not go in. But yeah, I think this was an interesting keynote. We want to hear from James White today about like what people are doing and what's coming up. So I'm recording this, and then I'm going to watch his ISP video. So if you want to see his latest Instant Speed podcast interview and what my thoughts are and what him and Brian Gottlieb say on that, you'll be able to find that video online either following this one or in the next day or two. So stay tuned, depending on when you're watching this, or go and have a look for it now. I'm a big Fight of James. I'm a big Fight of James fan. No, I'm a big fan of James White. I think he's pretty good. I like, how he gives out enough spice to keep people interested without giving away the whole show. I think he's a decent public speaker. I obviously really like his ideas when it comes to game design and how Flesh and Blood is working out. So let's see what he has to say. This lovely Flesh and Blood intro with the full sound. You can kind of capture that. And it's available for content creators as well, so if you want to use that in your videos, you can get it.
To the Flesh and Blood World Championship 2023.
It's pretty hype.
The World Championship is the pinnacle of Flesh and Blood competitive play, awarding the largest cash prize of the year and bestowing the most prestigious title of them all upon one player, that of World Champion. The World Championship is also the greatest symbol of everything Flesh and Blood stands for. People coming together in the Flesh and Blood through the common language of playing great games. And this weekend, in the beautiful host city of Barcelona, people have come together from across the world to a common love of playing.
Like, I feel like it's a bit funny because he edited out the applause, obviously, because this was probably a much longer speech than the 51 minutes we have. But it feels like the cheers would have been good to leave in there. I think it was deserved.
A great game. While we're here to celebrate and cap off an incredible 2023, you are in for a treat this evening with a combo of heavy-hitting product announcements and even bigger event announcements of what's to come in 2024. But first, I would like to take a moment to thank some of our special guests in attendance. Tran, Spanish Trade Advisor from New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. We appreciate the New Zealand government, a very warm welcome. New Zealand government following our story with interest as we seek to inspire the wide.
So this is pretty cool. So New Zealand's trade representative in Barcelona showed up, right? Well, that's a pretty big deal, right? You can't actually typically get these people to come out to an event unless you're bringing in some big money into the economy or you're making a really good splash. And some of you might not be aware, but like when Flesh and Blood went back to New Zealand, they actually won an award as well for like small businesses and startup growth. And then they've also won like Deloitte's Fast Company, like fastest growing startup in New Zealand. So if you think about how much money companies are making, LSS isn't just on the radar as a games company on the global stage from TCG perspective, but on the New Zealand stage, it's actually on quite a big, the big radar. Like a lot of companies are looking at it, and analysts and people like that, Deloitte, clearly the New Zealand government's aware of it. So in terms of like impact, it's quite powerful to see that it's winning these awards and like these people are coming to their events. Because this is the guy who deals with all of New Zealand's trade with Spain, and we can assume it's potentially not a huge amount because of how far the countries are apart, and I don't know what the main exports of New Zealand are, but I don't know how desperate they are for them in Spain, but it's still a pretty big thing when these guys show up.
New Zealand gaming industry to follow in our footsteps onto the. I hope many of you will step into Teco Boss's workshop over the weekend.
Yeah, having the professor there was a big deal as well. Like, he's huge.
Available exclusively from the professor himself. I appreciate your hard work and perhaps get that very special commemorative card signed by her. I'd like to thank Peter, Thibaut, Jürgen, Emma, and the tournament center team for their hard work, but for the delivery of what now is the greatest TCG tournament circuit and hard together to play.
So he says this is the greatest TCG tournament circuit in the world. I actually think we do agree with him. I certainly agree with him. I think, there was a point when that crown belonged to other people, but they kind of let it go, and Fab has stepped into that gap. Now, it's not to say that Wizards of the Coast couldn't turn around tomorrow and decide that they wanted it back, or start spending the money to get it. But until they do, Fab really can have free marketing and just be like, this is ours. We're running the best circuit. The competitive players are coming to us because we have that money. And just the environment. And I think until other people come in and try and take that, it's kind of just an easy win. I say easy, like obviously hard won through a lot of effort and energy and blood, sweat and tears, but still pretty fun for them to be the only people who can actually claim that.
Around the world, it is your support and hard work that makes events like this years now to turn the creative vision of your belief to bring social media over the last 50 plus days have been...
Oh, this is a call out to the Sunflower Samurai. Yeah, they did a really good job of getting hype for Barcelona and giving people ideas of things they could do in Barcelona and places to eat and stuff like that. It's the sort of thing like local communities should aspire to. If you've got a big event in your country, just making everyone feel welcome when they're coming from overseas, I think is your main goal. And if you do that by posting on Twitter or just offering people advice or doing Ask Me Anythings or giving people people they can ask for advice and get guidance from, I think is a good template for everyone.
I'd like to thank and invite Laura Lobato onto the stage to join me. Laura is a local superstar based out of Madrid.
So the next part is in Spanish, so unfortunately we're going to have to skip over that because I do not speak Spanish. But I assume she said some very good things. And I'm sure Spain is delighted to have Spanish-speaking LSS employees kicking around and managing the translation into Europe and the localization.
Alright. Son, I know this is what you've been waiting for. Show us some product. Let's get into it. Kicking off, this is the 2024 product roadmap. Hidden stores in February, you know it, heavy hitters is coming. We have a early June release, set 13, and late September release for set 14. The big news is all three of these booster sets are standalone, fully draftable. There will be some smaller products scattered in between those big releases, but they are your big hitting marquee releases of the year.
And this is pretty huge for us because the Fab community has gone 6 or 7 months with only one draft product. And that's been our competitive product and our, the only real set available in large distribution for long periods of time. So having 3 draft sets in a year is pretty huge. This gap is kind of small, which is interesting because obviously Nationals is going to happen, I think, somewhere around here, which we'll see in a minute, and Worlds will happen somewhere around here. So it's kind of going to be new set comes out, you've got a few weeks to get ready, and then Nationals will happen. New set comes out, you'll have a few weeks to get ready, and then Worlds will happen, which I think is quite an interesting competitive cadence for drafts. It's kind of fun. It really doesn't let the set have time to be solved before people have to draft it competitively. But it's pretty huge. There's a lot of speculation as to where we're going to go. We still have our Mysterious set that we need to get. We still have our Savage Land set we need to get. We don't exactly know where Heavy Hitters is set. The arena, theoretically, if we were going to look... There's been a lot of speculation if we just look at the World of Wraith, where the arena's going to be. Some people have been speculating that it's kind of down here, which I think could make sense. It could also be here somewhere. I think the main thing is that it can't be too deep into any one area because I think what we're seeing so far is there are hints that people are traveling here from various other places. And it kind of makes sense for it to be maybe on the edge of the Savage Lands, but also accessible from, Solana, people from Aria traveling there, people from the pits and Metrics going there to the arena kind of makes sense. So having it in this kind of Borderlands area between the pits, Metrics, Solana, and the Savage Lands kind of makes sense. And that also explains how people Kasai get there when she's supposedly from the desert, which I think is around about here. The Red Desert is to the southwest, I think, of Volcor. So she's from around about here. So it would make sense if the arena was somewhere down here, so she could get there. And then there's been some speculation that Valda will come in from Aria, so it would make sense that it was over here, so she could travel there, travel to Solana with Prism, and then head over to the arenas. And it also really does make sense for it to be close to the pits and to metrics. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we saw a bit of a hint that robots were fighting in the arena, but it kind of makes sense that they're in there and involved there as well. So maybe robots are getting involved in the arena, which could be quite interesting.
Next up, this is what seasonal OP looks like for 2024. We kick off the year with a heavy hitter season supporting Road to Nationals into ProQuest. We have mid-year national championship. We have skirmish in August. So hey, that skirmish season coming up this December, there's quite a long wait between drinks when it comes to skirmish. Do not miss out on skirmish season 8 coming up in stores around the world this December, because the next skirmish is not until August 2024.
That's interesting because they typically have skirmishes as the casual player entry, but it seems like they've just got too many. Not too many. This is great, actually. I personally prefer the focus on Road to Nationals and ProQuest and things. I think they can be fun for new players as well. But they've clearly just got to deal with Nationals. They've got to deal with both of these ProQuests for their 2 Pro Tours. They just don't have time for skirmishes. And skirmishes are very much the filler in between the others. So it's all right. I think I'm happy. I am in Japan from February to March, which means I may be missing the whole Road to National season again. So if I can't qualify for Nationals this year because I went to Japan, I will be sad, but I will also be like, okay, what can you do? I may just become a degenerate grinder of armories from when I come back in March until they do the cutoff for Nationals. We'll see. I should be able to pull it off, but we'll have to see when the cutoff is.
Because we have a very busy front end of the year. We have October, ProQuest coming back around again, and finishing up the year with a skirmish season in December. So, for those of you who are astute out there, maybe you've noticed something a little bit special.
There's 2 ProQuests.
That's right, 2 Pro Tours coming back in 2024. And that's why we have 2 ProQuest seasons. So you all know that we're going to Los Angeles in March. We are coming back to Europe in July. We're coming back to Europe.
I really liked when they announced this.
And you know what? I'm even going to tell you where it is. And I'm even going to tell you when it is. Thank you, Trevor. We said we would let you know when these events were going to be with lots of time to prepare. And we're delivering on that promise.
So the biggest criticism of early Fab, a lot of like the OP and stuff like that, was just that they were announcing a Pro Tour after the ProQuest season for that Pro Tour had ended. People were competing like really hard to get qualifications for a Pro Tour, and then they were hearing where it was and they were like, oh, I can't afford to go. And a lot of the feedback, especially now that people have started properly traveling internationally for them, you know, outside the first one, which was obviously, you know, a lot of hype, a lot of people traveled for it, the numbers of people actually traveling internationally has maintained it and stayed quite steady. So those people need to know 4 or 5 months in advance so they can book time off work, they can book flights when it's cheap, and all these kind of things. So if you're going to have a respectable sort of Pro Tour circuit with people traveling across the globe to compete, you really do need to tell them in advance. And that's, you know, one of the things that I think LSS has been able to do because they've been hiring so many people recently. And Trevor's the new guy working at OP and managing stuff. You know, is plan these things a lot more in advance, you know, lock down venues further in advance and spend all the time they need to secure and run these things in time that they can actually commit in advance. And also part of that as well is just capital, and I think probably LSS has made quite a good bit of money in the past 2 years since they last had their double Pro Tour season. And I think having that capital in the bank and having a much better grasp of how many boxes sell, how many you need to print. Fab has probably slowed from a huge growth curve into a more steady growth curve, which means they have a much better grasp of how many boxes they need to print, how much is going to sell, how much revenue they're going to get from distributors for every set. Having those all mature and become more understandable means that you then have the money to commit in advance to a venue, to a company that's going to run the event for you and all that kind of stuff. So having 2 Pro Tours isn't just a reflection of player demand, and being able to announce them so much in advance isn't just a reflection of player need. The two things are also based in the fact that LSS as a company is doing better, and that in turn is leading to being able to commit to event venues and things like that well in advance, and have the capital to back those event commitments, at the same time, right? Because if they didn't have free capital to put down a deposit for LA and Amsterdam at the same time, then we would be getting the Amsterdam announcement much, much later, because they wouldn't be able to confirm the weekend, the venue, the dates, or anything until further down the line.
You will find out in about 5 minutes where that Pro Tour is going to be. And of course, thank you, Trevor. Thank you. In the future. And if both of those are...
I don't know who this guy is, but he's giving me like Emperor of Man vibes. This very much could be like the new Guardian, a gold-focused Guardian in heavy hitters. We'll see.
I said yes with 5
more money. Woo! I will not be getting any of this money, but that is okay.
million USD. We're heading to Los Angeles in March. But you guys didn't know we're in Los Angeles. We're going to the Los Angeles Convention Center.
Again, just knowing the location and the dates, now you can book a hotel 4 months in advance when the rates are super low. You can get a good hotel really close to the venue. Now, one of the reasons that Barcelona was so good is that we knew about it in the summer. We all booked the same hotel, which might have been booked out if we'd all been so close, if we'd all been closer to the date. And then we were staying 4 minutes from the venue because we all knew where it was, and we got pretty good rates. I mean, the rate, for 5 nights, which I think we ended up staying there, the rates were pretty good.
And it looks like this. It's beautiful. Things off. Y Center in Amsterdam. Pro Tour number 2.
Yeah, Amsterdam is not cheap, but the fact that we know the venue kind of make things a lot easier. We're already talking about Airbnbs and hotels like right next to the venue, with good sort of 6 months notice. We're getting the best rate you can possibly think of, right?
2 for 2011 up to 18 callings.
18 callings is huge. I mean, that means almost every key region is going to get 1 or 2. And even the growth as well from 11 to 18. Again, as I said, this is all a reflection of LSS recruiting more people, having more capital available, and therefore having the resources to put on these events. Callings should be 400 or 500 people, happily traveling to events in their region and sort of enjoying them. And that can happen if they can commit to these dates in advance, and everyone can be free then.
And we're starting things off.
Wish I could go. I'd love to go to New Zealand. I will go to New Zealand at some point, but I didn't get invites. That is what it is.
Our backyard, the beautiful. Where else are we heading on the calling circuit?
Balance of Justice. I've no idea what it does. Battle Worn and Temper. It's going to be destroy it if it has 0 armor and it meets this condition, right? I imagine you're gonna. If it has 0 armor, you wager with your opponent, and if they reveal a card with more power than you, then it gets destroyed, or something like that. Or maybe it has 1 armor permanently, but if they flip a card that's bigger than you, it gets destroyed.
Heavy hitters release weekend. We're going to Hartford, Connecticut for some heavy hitters sealed pre-season. So the update in December, which will have a special focus on some major APAC events that are in...
That's good. APAC deserves some love. Their Fab community in APAC is growing hugely. They deserve more events. We've also got Warsaw, which I kind of skipped over. I think that's going to be great as well. Poland's a fantastic country. I'll never be sad about going to Poland. I might even go to this calling. And then 50 Battle Hardens is huge. I mean, 50 Battle Hardens is huge. They are the smaller weekend events. They don't expect a lot more people to travel for them, but it is just huge that they're having 50, right? And then we've got heavy hitters coming up. I'll play the video. 1,000 pre-releases. This is good. 6 heroes. We're not yet sure. Half of them might be new and half of them might be repeats, like Outsiders. Release celebration promos. There's this whole Deathmatch Arena leaderboard, which is kind of interesting, where basically heroes that win will gain points from all of these sorts of events, and then the people who got points for the heroes will get a special prize. The real big question is, are they going to be telling us who's on the leaderboard and where they are? Because then people are going to want to play the hero that's currently ahead, because they'll mean they're eligible for the prizes, or are they just not going to tell us, and then we kind of just have to put it together? So it'll be interesting, but basically everyone who's contributing is getting an exclusive Command & Conquer. So if we can math out who the hero that's most likely to win is, a lot of people are going to be bringing that hero to try and win the event. So this is very much like, I don't want you to think this is just a cool thing they're adding on. This is a meta-defining competition they've added for this season, with the prize being quite an exclusive promo. I think this is fantastic, especially if they immortalize this winning hero in some kind of story or something like that. I think this could be fantastic. So I really like this idea of this deathmatch arena. But I do want people to be aware that it will impact your local meta. So it's not just a case of this is a cool thing that heroes are going to get, acknowledged for winning more. People will be making spreadsheets. They will be trying to calculate who has the most points, and people will be bringing heroes to your meta based on that. So it could be fun because you're going to target the hero that's ahead, and people are going to bring that, and then you can target those, and you have an idea of what's going to be coming into your local meta. But also, it could be the case that everyone just shows up on the hero that's likely to win because they want to get that promo card. So it could be a positive or a negative. I don't really know yet. Then we have this fantastic announcement. I just want to play in its entirety because I think Kasai is fantastic.
First hero to enter the deathmatch arena.
Welcome to the arena.
Like, if that doesn't scream Savage Lands to you, I don't know what does.
Here's something to get you started. To survive here, you'll have to put your money where your mouth is.
So this is the new mechanic wager, is we both reveal the top card of our deck. No. This is when the attack hits, I get a gold token. So it kind of says to my opponent, block my attack with more cards, which is good for me because it buys me time to set up my big attacks. Or it says, give me a gold token, which then I can use on later turns, and I'm assuming most of the heroes have synergy. So wager is a very, very interesting mechanic in the scope of Flesh and Blood because it creates this balance between setup versus bonus, like benefits, where are you more worried about giving your opponent a turn off where you overblock an attack but you get a gold token, or are you more worried about giving your opponent a gold token and what they're going to do with it later, right? And I think that's really, really interesting because that decision-making process already exists with on-hit attacks, but this kind of makes it a lot more signposted, and it actually makes that decision matrix a lot more interesting for, I think, new players to understand, but also a lot more interesting within the games as well. As long as there's a good payoff for gold, which I think there is based on what we've seen coming up.
Contest your screw.
Also worth noting, they seem to have changed the Fab template. Previously, this came down to the bottom of the card and the artist stuff was in the middle. I'm not sure yet if I like it, but it might just been done to sort of like make things easier at the factory and, have less worry about this stuff getting cut off. We'll see. So Clash is where you reveal the top card of your deck and your opponent reveals the top card, and the person who had the card with the most power wins the clash, right? So this is a way to get a gold token for the Brutes and the Guardians, which assumedly there'll be a payoff for.
Becoming a champion takes all your might, agility, and vigor. So ask yourself, before you ask it all, what drives you to step into the arena? Fame? Fortune?
Vengeance.
There's something quite interesting about this guy is that the artist tweeted that he had been inspired by... So anyone who went to see James White at Worlds would have seen Joe, who's his bodyguard, like usher for the weekend. And I don't know how real this is, but the artist for this art tweeted a photo of Joe basically saying this was the muse. So, if you see Joe, I won't put a photo up of him because I don't think that's cool, but if you do see him at a future event and you think, oh, this guy looks familiar, he may actually have been inspired by James White's bodyguard, or they may just look similar because the artist did it based on this. I think this guy looks like Old Him, but there's no way that Old Him is just randomly at the arena, right? That can't be our new Guardian hero. It can't be new Old Him, just casually chilling.
Into the arena.
Can it? Maybe it can. And then we had the biggest announcement of the entire thing.
Fortune.
Vengeance. And gold? After all, raising an army isn't cheap.
Fan favorite Kasai comes back. And I've been saying that Kasai Adult is the easiest win LSS could have done for years. But I did appreciate that her original ability was a bit too close to Bolton in terms of the combo payoff. But it just feels like Kasai coming back as an adult is just... A lot of people have wanted this for a long time, and it's fantastic to see it happening. And there's your gold payoff. Destroy X gold you control, create X tokens. And it doesn't even cost anything, so you can destroy as many gold tokens as you want. And the tokens come in as a 3-2 ally with 1 cost attack, go again. Obviously, you have to have attacked and given go again to a weapon. This is kind of funny because this is basically Dromai, right? You're building into a late game where you summon, say, 4 or 5 allies, and then you're attacking with all those allies to create pressure. This is kind of like Dromai less dragons, but I imagine it's going to feel somewhat similar. You're just going to be playing a very straightforward game, stabbing with the weapons, moving on, stabbing with the weapons, making gold. And then eventually when you've got a significant reason to, and you stack your deck and everything's lined up perfectly, then you're going to say, okay, cool, let's make loads of allies, let's attack with them. And they don't have Phantasm, so I feel like a lot of people who liked Dromai might find themselves pivoting onto Kasai in kind of a fun way.
The sands will run red!
Yeah. So if you've drawn a card, your attacks cost 1 less to activate. Centauri Sabers cost 1, so this means you'll be able to attack twice for free as long as you've drawn a card. They do not have built-in Go Again, so you will have to get Go Again. And then you have this ability. Banish 2 red and 2 yellow cards from your graveyard. The next time a weapon you control hits a hero this turn, create a gold token. So this basically allows you to say to your opponent, I have Go Again, I'm attacking with 2 weapons. Do you want to give me a gold token, or are you giving me 2 cards from your hand? And obviously you have the other question of how many cards do I have in my hand? What attack reactions do I have? Is it really 2 cards that you have to block with, or is it 3? It's going to give her... Like, it seems like a weird ability. The cost is quite steep. She might not be able to do this every turn, but actually the turns when she does this are going to create a lot of thoughts for her opponent, especially because now we know what she can do with some of the gold tokens, and she may have other payoffs as well.
You asked, we delivered.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Kasai is fantastic. Then they have this celebrational, which is like this invitational tournament in Queenstown. My current feelings on it are I might watch it if I'm free. Like,
But I want to break away and talk about the celebration. We have the very special event coming up in the lead into the release of Heavy Hitters, happening down in Queenstown in New Zealand, my hometown, or my home country, my homeland. We have the world premiere, the call in Queenstown, but leading into that, running over the Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, we're bringing down a selection of community champions. These are people who are bringing positive energy, great vibes, demonstrating their immense passion for the game in many different ways, many different ways. And for this invitational event, we wanted it to not be about just the most exclusive, best players in the world. We wanted it to really represent...
So this event, I'll just summarize it because I think he goes on, is basically that it's more than just like good players. It's not about being good. It's about community and fun. So like if they do the job right on like social media and streaming, and Flake is quite good at this because he's quite good at making fun and getting people who are sort of quieter involved in fun activities. Which is one of the things he comes back on stream for, is that if he does this and he gets all of these people, like, you've got Craig, who's I think pretty well known as a Magic judge, but you've got other people like head judges, and you've got people like Ethan, who's quite outgoing. But it's a proper blend of like cosplayers, some people who are high on lifetime XP, who are the player side of things, and then like some content creators who are kind of just there to have a bit of fun. So, all of these people together could really, lead to, we'll say, a fun spectacle for everyone to watch from a distance. And I think that's really what this is meant to be. This is meant to be like a snapshot of the Fab community, and like it's supposed to be fun as a spectacle for people at home who can't be there, obviously need to feel engaged and connected to it. Now, the only problem, of course, if you're in the UK, is this will be happening on New Zealand time, so you'll probably be watching it not live. But it could be fun. It could be great, actually. When I first heard about it, I was kind of like, well, I'm not going to be there, so that's fine. That classic sort of FOMO, comforting kind of thing where you're like, well, I wasn't invited, so I'm probably not going to tune in. But actually, the more I think about it, the more fun I just think this could be. Fab is more than just about the game, and there are some very competitive people who are seriously about the game, but I think that Fab is more than just about the game, and I think that it's important to emphasize that from like a distance, and to show everyone around the world like how great the community is and how like inclusive the community is. I think one of the things that does that very well is like the cosplay contest, and this year's cosplay contest at Worlds was absolutely phenomenal. Just the range of people, but like we're talking causes and consequences a lot in this video, and one of the causes of so many people coming out for cosplay wasn't just how fun cosplay is, but it was also the fact that LSS brought in runner-up prizes, first place prizes worth on the collector's secondary market thousands of dollars, and that means that there is a reward for cosplay, and that meant that there's a big cosplay community. But LSS also took the time to get established cosplayers from other fandoms involved in the Fab community. And I hear from, Dan, who's always in the cosplay scene, that there is an active Discord and Facebook group, and there's a lot of encouragement, and there's a lot of positive emotions and discussions coming out of there. So the fact is that this community has been fostered to be good beyond just the card game, and I think people need to appreciate how good that will make people feel about the game in itself. Just a note, as an apology to Viet Pham, I played him when I was on Lexi in the Calling in Birmingham, and I beat him in a very, very sloppy game in round 2, and I had only played Fab like 3 or 4 times since coming back from my break, and I'd just been handed a Lexi deck, and I beat him, and then proceeded to go like 0-3 and drop, when really, he definitely should have cleaned the floor with me and then gone on to do better things at the tournament. So I felt really bad about that, and just seeing his face there made me just like reminded of it. I haven't really spoken to Brody or any of the other people. I don't really know 1-2 Juice or any of those, but I've met Saint. He's nice enough. And White Rabbit always have really good streams. So I think this is going to be a really fun event. It seems like a good mix of people. I think it could just be very fun for everyone watching from a distance, especially if there's just like lots of stuff for these people to do that make you feel engaged with what they're doing. So that could be very good. Now, that's kind of the end of the stream. So we had really good competitive circuit announcements, really hyped for the OP season next year, another Pro Tour in Europe that I'll definitely go to. Don't really have budget for Pro Tour Los Angeles, and then Worlds will just kind of depend on if I'm qualified and where it is. If I somehow qualify for Worlds, I may go even if it's in America. If I'm not qualified, I'll probably only go if it's in Europe. So if you're looking to run into me specifically, then this Pro Tour 5 is the place to come and meet me. I will be definitely in Amsterdam. I might not be in some of the callings, like I might not be at the Liverpool calling that was announced as well. I might not be at some of the other callings, but the Pro Tour, if it's in Amsterdam, I'm definitely going to make the time. Heavy hitters, I'm super excited for because it looks like they're doing some interesting stuff with tokens. The theme itself, not my favourite. Like, I'm not big fond of like big muscles and the blood and the deathmatch gladiator kind of vibe. But if it's done well, it could be fun. I'm really more curious about where it is and what characters are coming there, because that kind of gives us an idea of who's involved in this part of Aria, and this part of Wraith, and how they get there, and like how the worlds are linked together. I think that's really fascinating. So yeah, I kind of have that. If it's a good draft set, I'll be super engaged. If it's more like Bright Lights, I might not be as engaged, but we'll see. We'll see how much no block there is in there. And Kassai just looks really interesting, so if we get a Guardian with a similar like level of interesting ability, I might suddenly go from not that interested in the set to like super interested. And I could easily imagine like Valda or someone like that just showing up, or this being like a weird version of Oldhim from another timeline, who's doing something weird. I don't know. That's it. Yeah, it's a celebrational heavy hitters. I think this was a really great announcement. It would have been fun to be in the room, but watching it back afterwards, I mean, it's good to go through and talk about the things that have happened.